They said, well, you get one more shot in life, kid. You go to school, you'll flunk out, that's on you. Basically, we're done with you.
How do you build a network, run a profitable business, and make an impact? Oh, and have a personal life at the same time? That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. I'm your host, Chaz Wilson, husband, father of five, author of the book 5+1, president and co-founder of Master Networks, Inc., a national networking organization. Look, each week I bring you successful entrepreneurs who will share success strategies of how to effectively build a network, add valuable wisdom to your journey, and help you succeed. Welcome to Connect, Share, and Prosper.
All right, everybody, welcome to Connect, Share, Prosper. We are in episode 80 today. Super excited for our guest. I'm going to introduce him here in just a second. But remember, as always, each Monday we come to you live, noon central, with successful entrepreneurs to share their wisdom, experience, help you understand and navigate the world of networking and connecting with high-producing, highly successful individuals. And so if you have questions today, make sure you put those in the Facebook, in the feed, and we will ask those questions throughout the episode today. So my guest today is President and CEO of the Wooditch Group. He's a sales and leadership coach. We were just talking about some of the sales skills that he has, and I hope that he'll share some of those with you today. He's a professional speaker and author of Always Forward and his more recent book, Fail More. And we're super excited to have today our guest, Bill Wooditch. Thanks for being on Connect, Share, Prosper today.
It's an honor and a pleasure. It's great to meet you.
So let's start it, and I used to say at the beginning, right? Because that could be, we go back a really long way. But what was your upbringing like? I mean, did you have successful entrepreneurs that you could follow in their footsteps, or did you kind of just have to, pick up and go on your own? How did it start for you?
I always say in this company, you have to find a way or make a way. And I think the embodiment initially of find a way or make a way was me, because growing up in Western Pennsylvania, small town of 3,800 people, low ceilings of expectation, low ceilings in the house, more of a mentality of let's be safe. Let's not venture out and do anything scary. Let's stay in our comfort zone, the cul-de-sac of comfort, I call it, inside the white picket fence. And Chaz, that is the opposite of my personality. I like to think of myself as an intelligent risk taker. And I also think that a person has to find and follow that burning fire of who they really are inside, their true nature. And for me, my biggest fear was staying, stuck in that town, doing what I was doing at the time because I had grown my hair, smoked cigarettes, became that rebel without a clue, resisted authority, and went to work in a factory. Scared me straight. And I took that fire of fear and moved out of that small town and started my way forward, first through school and then through employment and sales.
What about it scared you?
I think that, and I think your listeners and your viewers might want to feel this one. If you feel you're in a place, or if you feel that life is passing you by and you think forward, and thinking forward, you can feel that pang, that twinge of regret. When those pangs of fear, those tentacles almost of fear, put themselves around you, you'll move. If you don't feel that, it's so much of his motivation, inspiration, that's one thing. But having that fuel, that fire behind you of an experience that's indelibly embedded, not only in your mind, but it dents your soul, believe me, you'll do what it takes to get to next. And that's what I did.
So you did what it takes, right? You said, this fear is driving me. I'm not going to be in the factory, maybe this town, whatever it is. I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? They want something more than maybe those around them have had. Where did you start? So you go to the factory, and then what did you just have this epiphany, like this is the path for me? Or where was the direction that went from there?
It wasn't my epiphany. It was an opportunity that was presented to me by my parents. And they said, well, you get one more shot in life, kid. You go to school, you'll flunk out, that's on you. Basically, we're done with you. So I was scared straight, and I went to a junior college in Fairham, Virginia, and I learned how to open a book for the first time in my life, how to apply myself, which was the scariest thing for me, because what if I applied myself and I failed? Whoa. So I applied myself, went all in, and was able to go to 2 other schools after that, Purdue, where I finished my undergrad, and Penn State, where I completed my master's. But here's the point. The point is this. If you were to ask me today, is it street smarts or is it book smarts? I'm going to probably take the default and say it's both. But if I had to put it all on the line, I'll take street smarts. I'll take hungry, street smarts, a person that wants to learn, has an insatiable quest for learning, but learning those things that can move them and their business proposition forward. That's what I'm about.
So it seems like you've used fear of failure. You've talked about in your book, Fail More, and then the other one, Always Forward. I'm sure there's a correlation. I'd love to know that between the 2 books. But it seems like you've not let that paralyze you, where many people do, the fear of failing. And so how does one overcome that? And how does that, what does that have to do with business and how that drives people? It seems like that's something you've used as fuel.
It's one of the most misunderstood concepts. And when people talk about I conquered my fear or I overcame my fear, you really don't overcome it. What you do is you move through it. It is physically impossible to move. You don't overcome it. There's still that little nagging in your subconscious. There's still that little nagging piece of doubt, perhaps. But you got to burst through, at least the dominant fear. So what I did is to look at it this way. What's the worst thing? And I do this in this company today. I train this. What's the worst thing that can happen to me if I do this thing? The ultimate worst case. Now, what's my upside? Now, in the middle, Chaz, it's the biggest part. What am I willing to do? How do I engage? Am I resilient enough? Will I burn my boat? No retreat, no surrender, and go all in to make this happen. I need my fear, my uncertainty, my behind me. I need that as fuel, because I know where I don't want to go, and that way is not always forward. That way is backwards. Don't want to regress. And I speak on this. If you try to stand still, remain in that cul-de-sac of comfort, don't take those intelligent risks to move you forward where you earn the reward, you will go back, because the universe will not support stasis, my friend. You'll always go back.
Yes. So how do I know if it's an intelligent risk, right? Because I think that's sometimes there's this fear, right, of is this a good thing? And I also want to talk about the requirement. I think it's a requirement to go all in business. You said, to go all in. Yeah. So how do I know if it's an intelligent risk versus an unintelligent risk? Is there a criteria? Is there something I can say it's not meeting these things to know this is the right risk to take?
It's actually, thank you for and you didn't know this, but it's actually in the book Fail More. And the criterion is this, that you're going to line out your worst case. And then you got to line out what's your upside, what's happening here. And then you're going to look and say, is this worth the emotional? Is this emotional, or is this financial, or is it both? And this is what I mean by emotional and financial when they conjoin. Your family. If you have a family, you've got to think safety first for the family and take small steps toward your goal instead of jumping off into the great unknown to try to make it happen. You've got to know as much about the risk as you possibly can. And I mean as much about the risk. You've got to vet it. You've also got to look inside, Chaz. And you got to say, am I willing to do this? Am I willing to spend the time, the effort it takes to become knowledgeable about this risk? And then, am I going to do what it takes to make it happen? Here's the other thing. If it don't happen, you do have to have, when family's involved, I believe, a plan B. Mm-hmm. And I've been on air saying, no, plan B is, your plan B is going to be your A. You got to get rid. Not when lives that depend on you for their sustenance are involved. I think you have to have a way back.
So if you don't, one might consider that to be reckless, right? If you don't have that plan, if others are involved and it impacts others, right?
Extremely reckless. And that's different than being intelligent in risk. Intelligent in risk, meaning you walk up to that risk. Like the Ethiopian proverb states, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
At a time.
Yeah. And instead of jumping all in.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, I want to welcome, guys. We're with Bill Wooditch today. We've got a lot to discuss today. I want to welcome to our show. We've got some guests watching: Ashley, Alexis, Victoria, Ricardo. We got several people on right now. If you guys have questions for Bill, he's a top sales trainer, leader, author, speaker. But I want to touch on something you said here, Bill, and Ricardo, you might have to pull something off the screen here just a second. I've got something covered in the questions. So your book, Fail More, implies that we should fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that it's okay to fail, especially in business, right? So tell me about that. Why is it okay to fail in business, and why should we fail more?
Well, let me start with Elon Musk. Elon Musk said, if I fail 100% of the time, I have succeeded, because someone's going to take all that failure and they're going to learn how to succeed with it. And I know this to be true, that success and failure are two sides of the same coin. That for me, I failed 1,375 times a week.
Whoa.
That's how many no's I got, which was a failure on cold calls. Each time, each failure brought me closer to yes, because I was doing the most important thing you have to do with failure, and that's learn from it. If you're not learning from the lessons of failure, it's just an experience, Chaz. That's all. You've got to learn what is working, and the only way you learn is by pushing yourself into that zone of uncertainty, but you got to learn, and that's the only way you can succeed. It's the only way.
So it's interesting that 1,375 times, right, that you got no's to get yeses. And I would imagine as a top, I mean, you were sharing with me before this, and I know it's not something you lead with. There's a humility piece that you have, but I'm just going to share with the audience. I mean, you've been a top sales agent with Liberty Mutual, top broker with others, a top sales trainer. But I would imagine to do that, you were getting more no's and more failures than those around you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you've got to get as comfortable with rejection as you possibly can. You see, most of us don't want our ego to be, disturbed by that belief that we've created for ourselves in our own narrative, that we're invincible, that we're powerful, that we're successful because we just closed our last deal. So we don't want to feel that laceration of rejection. We don't like it, whether we're in public speaking, whether we're writing a book that gets panned, or whatever it is. We just want to stay away from rejection. But that is the requisite, that is the requirement to be successful in sales. You're going to get your butt handed to you more times than you get yes.
And I know and probably for you as well, it's like we all know that, I think, inherently, like we hear those statements, right? You need to fail more, but it's not easy to do. Like, at least for me, sometimes I get hung up on that, especially if I have a lot of those failures consecutively in a row, right? I'm just
you know what, Chaz? And I'll give you an answer. It's individual, so there's not a global for all. But here's an answer. When I grew up, we were so poor. We said, how poor were you? Well, we had dented soup cans without labels, and my uncle had given it. He gave them to us from a grocery store. They were about ready to perish, and my mom made pasta 6 days out of the week, and I wanted something more. I put my first sales job, $200 to my name, oxidized station wagon, couldn't tie a tie, had a corduroy light brown suit. That's all I had. Put a picture of a Ferrari up on the wall, put a picture of a home in California up on the wall. I didn't know my butt from anything, from a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, how bad do you need this? How bad can you smell that leather in that car? Can you look and see the ocean from your house? Now, are you willing to pay the price maybe of getting 100,000 rejections to get those yeses that are going to bring you closer to that? You check the box on yes, you are now all in.
So, I think there's a lot of people who relate to, and I want to ask you this question, so let me give a little context. Were you aware, it sounds like because you were visualizing what success looked like, but were you aware that even though you weren't experiencing success in that moment, but that was just going to be temporary? Because I think sometimes people get stuck in this and think this is how it is. And I know, like for me, when I was at my worst, when I had $27 in my pocket with 5 children, little children, and it's like there was a part of me that was aware, there was an awareness factor that this was going to be a great story someday. Did you feel like that too? Like when you were in the station wagon, as you were talking about, couldn't tie a tie and all that, like, were you aware that this was going to be a great story someday, that you were going to be on the other side of this?
I think I'm going to make an assumption that both of us did this. We had the Rocky real hero journey inside of us, you know? And I did. And I thought, if it's to be, it's up to me. And I knew one thing, Chaz, I only knew one thing. I didn't know anything about my product. I still don't know much about insurance, but I knew a lot about me. And I knew that I was going to keep going if I got 1,000 no's to get that one yes. And I knew, because I had the confidence, that if I could win the heart of that buyer, then I could win the heart of another and another. And by doing so, I could build enough that I would become successful. I believed in me, baby. And here's the thing in sales. They're going to always buy your confidence before they ever stick around to see, is Chaz competent? Does he have any knowledge that's useful? Their subconscious is going to buy you first. They're going to buy you every time based on confidence. Now, you got to be competent. You got to have people that are competent, but they're going to buy your confidence first, baby, every time.
So good.
Confident in me.
So good. So if it's got to be, it's up to me, which I love. I think that's. But is that where I see the sign behind you that says the Unstoppables? Is that kind of where that mantra, that feeling of comes from, or is there another story behind the kind of the Unstoppables title there? I know that's the title of your podcast as well.
Right. Well, and what I've been able to do is to talk with people who have experienced what we've experienced in life. And just a little bit of your story, I'm going to make another assumption on this, is that you've been hit with obstacles. You've had to find a way through or around those obstacles. And what was your defining moment? What was that one time, that one moment, that one deal that said, okay, this is my crucible. I've been tested. I can do this. I'm going to go through it. So I want to know that in being unstoppable. That's a requisite. The other thing is you've got to be in the right place. So I would admonish your entrepreneurs and your listeners and viewers to know this. You got to be in the right place for your skill set. You got to be able to grow your skill set in that place. It's got to be right for you. You got to have the right activity to get the right result. That is very symmetrical to me, because if I wanted to be a mechanic, an astronaut, I couldn't do it. Suck in math, and I can't do anything with cars except drive them, and not very well.
So I totally get that, right? When your primary skill set is aligned with the business opportunity, it's magic. When it's not, it's frustration. It's, head against the wall. And business is fun when it's working. When it's not, it's just not fun.
No.
I will tell you, we got a question here. So I want to read this question. And Ricardo, you may have to help me. It's a little off the screen here, but it says, as a manager, how do you balance between coaching someone? Here, can you slide that over just a little bit? Coaching someone on your team to emotionally get past failure. So they use it as a lesson, so they don't do that again, right? So let me rephrase this or restate this. As a manager, how do you balance between coaching someone on your team to, quote, emotionally get past a failure, but still use their mistake as a lesson so they don't do it again? Love that question, Kelsey. Thank you for putting that there. So, all right. So how do you do that?
By putting your people in position to win. And by that, I mean this. Don't give them too much. Give them those small things that they can win on. And if there's a misstep, you need to be side by side with that person, teaching them that is the bargain. That is the contract that success demands. I have lessons here. I have object lessons in people who are now doing presentations for national companies who were so nervous and literally afraid to do anything when they walked in the door to now total mastery. One of the ways is this too, for managers. One of the ways, get your person to know their product. Get your person to know themselves in this way too. Most people will perceive you to be the product, at least in sales. Get to know yourself, then know your product, have that confidence in the product so people can feel your confidence and then become competent. But it's okay to have some bloodletting. It's okay to have some tears on the carpet. That's the fertile environment. Create that environment. I'm speaking to your manager. Create that environment that makes it a fertile learning ground for people to succeed. And that's the way you teach people to go through failure.
I love it. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit on you here. So have there been people, our groups around networking and connecting and building relationships? Because for me, what helped me become, quote, an unstoppable in many ways wasn't so much the tactic that I deployed, but the relationships I started to surround myself with. that then they helped me with those things. So have there been key mentors in your life, and how did you connect with them, and how did they become part of what you do?
Yes, we need our allies and we need our advocates. We need people who are our mentors, and I've sought mentors. Mentors that helped me through certain stages of my life were vital for me. Some mentors were flesh and blood. Some came from history, like Winston Churchill. One of the great, Churchill would say that success is stumbling from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. So, and I would learn. And I'll tell you, something else is strange. I don't really read business books, which is probably anathema, but I do read history books, and I read about war. And I think about how overreach, caused the end of Napoleon, and how arrogance and certain things than human nature, because everything in sales is about human nature. You talk about tactics, you're really talking what you said about strategy. You better have relationships, because life's about relationships. And you said something else before, and Jim Rohn said this, Tony Robbins took it, we all say it. You are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So your mentors need to be people that support and drive you to the upper ceiling, so you can raise those ceilings, those limits, those self-imposed barriers, and you become more by emulating what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Oh, I love that. I agree. I think everything in my life of significance has come through the relationships that I have, that I've developed. I've been very intentional about those, right? The mentors, the leaders, the people who've really added value to my life. So as a business owner, I'm sure you're always looking to grow and expand and so forth. So first and foremost, how can our people connect with you? How can they find your books, et cetera, find you in social media, whatever it might be? And then I want to ask you about what's on the horizon for you. What are you expanding into? What are you growing into? What's the new thing you're working on?
Yeah. Thank you. At Bill Wooditch, Wooditch, or you can walk into a Barnes & Noble, you can pick up Fail More. Amazon has both Always Forward and Fail More, and they're both on Audible, as well as you can buy the physical form of the book. And what's next for me, because I'm always thinking about next, and I think in life you have to think next. What I'm really trying to do is to further my speaking career, and I'm looking at a 3rd book that the editor is waiting for, at least an outline of what that book would be. And frankly, I'm stuck in the doldrums of a forest, not knowing the trees from it. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do it on. So there you go. And
so
that is
they want the 3rd book, but you don't have it. Like, you don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah. I don't know how you are with this, but some of those things are organic in nature. And I think the best things are organic in this way. It's not contrived. It's not you don't feel the push. You're more pulled by the subject.
For sure.
And I think that you're same with being an entrepreneur. You've got to feel that pull. You can't just say, "Hey, I want the toys, I want the car, I want the lifestyle." That's great, but there's got to be some little bit of insanity in that DNA that wants to drive you out there to try that stuff without a net.
I think, like you said, just like a product, your book is a product. You have to really buy into it. You have to believe everything. So you can't just put something out there that maybe just because it sells. It has to be something that you buy into. I've got 2 books. I'm working on my 3rd as well. And it's all of them are things I really, really inherently buy into it. So it becomes natural. So yeah, I understand the struggle.
I'm going to buy your books now. So you're going to see.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Oh, no, don't. I'll send them to you.
Same here. Appreciate that. So expanding the network, right? That's what we do. We teach people expanding. Could you give us one tip to our listeners to say, listen, number one, it's important, as you just said, the 5 closest people, the people you associate with. So let's say I'm in a, I don't want to say a circle, but I have a group of people, and maybe it's those 5, and I need to level that up, but I'm not exactly sure how to do that. How do you do that? How do you identify who those people might be, and how do I get into their circle, or how do I invite them into mine? What would be some tips?
Well, there's 2 parts to that. I think within the circle you have now, you have to ask yourself this question. And you got to be honest with what you see that comes back to you. Am I intellectually inspired by this person? Am I growing intellectually? Am I challenged in my thought process by this person? Thought-provoking. Are we sharing ideas on a similar turf, or am I the one with all the ideas? Am I the one that's always bringing the solutions to the table? Number one, am I emotionally in a place with these people where they are getting better, not bitter? Are they more inclined toward self-improvement? continual quest for improvement of the self, knowing that we don't have the answers, but we need to find at least solutions together. And that's, I think, where the whole thing about what's great about what you're doing is connection. Because if I'm in a room and I'm the only one in the room that has an answer, boy, we limited. Man, we're in trouble. So I use connections with people on an intellectual level, on an emotional level, to make sure that I'm with people who are not better but trying to get better, people that are at a certain level where they're thinking forward, where they're thinking about solutions rather than people and problems. I mean, that is a death knell for a company. Companies that walk around with blame and excuses, F that. I do not allow that in this company. When I catch it, it's severely castigated. And the other thing I think is how do you grow that is by seeking people. I think it was the founder of Home Depot who used to bring his card out. And if he got a great experience at Starbucks, he'd give it out. And he'd say, you need to work for me.
Yes.
So I would ask people, just be naturally curious with people. Can I ask you, how did you start your business? Where are you from? What got you to this point? Just ask questions, put yourself behind, and don't be that focus of every narrative, of every conversation. Ask people, care about people, use less I's, more we's, and more you, and you'll be better off.
Couldn't agree more. It's actually in our listeners, a lot of them will relate to what we teach called BOND. It's an acronym, BOND, that we use to bond with people and connect. And we teach that. And so that's what, again, you not knowing that either, but that's what you're teaching. You're like, come from a place of contribution, come from a place of, interest in somebody and talking about them and getting to know them. So I love that.
Because we're all in the service of others. We are in the service of others. And I am never confused about who pays the bills here. It's the client. I'm just the steward. I'm just the steward of those bills.
So true, right? Okay, so I want to share this question I got on a podcast here. I got this question, and when I was being interviewed, and I thought it was one of the best questions I've had, so I continue to use it every time. Often in business, there's, and you already said this, kind of that balance of humility. It's understanding those things. But let's say this was a venue you get to brag a little bit, okay? I think sometimes in business, we don't celebrate enough. I know that's always been a struggle for me. I don't always celebrate the successes enough. So I'm giving you the permission. When has been a time in business, like what's been your most favorite rewarding time of success where you're like, wow, we as a team, we did that. Like we accomplished that. Super exciting. What's one of those moments for you?
Do you have a camera on in here? Because 20 minutes before we started, I gave out bonus checks for the quarter, which is my happiest time. None of the people who received checks started in the industry. I'm a big believer in hiring people for potential, people that are street smart, and people that really have that burning fire to get ahead. Perhaps they were fractured at some point in their life. And to see what's happened and them being in the right environment we talked about, free from fear, able to learn and grow, and get the nature of those bonus checks I just handed out is a we collaboration. Yes, we've done it. I feel so good about that because they've taken the lessons that I wrote down in my study 30 some years ago. They've applied it, and it's all in this book. Activity ruling success, thinking and doing, the value of time, being able to walk away from a bad position, understanding the rule of 33 1/3%. There's only so many people that will buy from you, and about 33 1/3 will never buy from you. It's right. The freedom to be rejected, to understand it's okay. It's just a numbers game. And I think it's all in that book. But my biggest kick is the development of people. I don't do it. They do it. I am just their coach and mentor.
I love it. Love it. Man, so good. Yeah. And it's a way for you because you're investing in people, right? So you're helping them. And, to hand out the bonus checks is a reflection of everybody coming together. I love that. Just looking through really quick to see if there's any other questions that came in. Lots of great hearts, thumbs up. Great question. I got several replied to Kelsey's question. Great question. Welcome. Love it. Okay, so you did share with how we can get the books. Guys, make sure you go out and get these books out. I can't wait to read those, especially the Always Forward. That's the one I want to definitely dive into right away. So yeah, we'll exchange, make sure that we get each other books after this episode. And again, people can find you on social media. Guys, remember, these are folks that I bring to you every week on Connect, Share, Prosper. I love the episode. I mean, we didn't get too much into the backstory, which maybe I'll have you on a future episode and we can do that. But I love the tactical things, because I think often you can get into motivation, but there's steps and key steps to success in business. Again, I think I was trying to read the title of your book, Always Forward. I think it said
Discover the 7 secrets of sales success.
7 secrets. Do you mind just listing off a couple of those for our people?
Number one, the biggest thing I found when I started, there was a small ruler. I'll do it real quick, but there's a small ruler at Liberty Mutual from the desk of my predecessor who was fired. And on the ruler, it said activity rules success. Now, this is before anybody started putting numbers and an X behind things. So it said activity rules success. And I thought, well, there's my key. If I have a whole lot of activity, directed activity toward a result, I'm going to be successful. That's number one. Number two is think and do. I will tell you this as a takeaway. It's going to be the most platinum thing I can tell you. I learned this. Someone told me this, a president of a company. He said, Wooditch, the difference between you and everybody else is that your thought and your action, the marriage of your thought and action, there's no delay. You think and then you do. And that's hugely important, to be able to think and then do with no time frame in between that really delay will sneak in and kill you. Here's the thing. The shorter the distance between that thought and a decisive action, the greater your shot at success, and the opposite's also true. Number 3 was time. I used to show up late, did it about 3 or 4 times. 4th time, $1 million prospect kicked me out of his office. I never got back in. I was never late again. I learned from that. So that's part of the story. You got to be respectful of other people's time, and you've got to respect yours by not wasting time learning how. You got to learn how to qualify opportunity from conversation. That's sales. So many people walk out, how did the call go? It was good, but they don't have a next step. They don't have a time-sensitive next step, and they're dead. So the book is full of that, how-tos, like you said, how to do this. And it's also, I think, one of the most important things. He or she who cares least controls most. That's walkaway power. That's the art of negotiation. That's in the book. And it is also rife with some really good stories from history on people who have pushed their level forward, pushed the needle forward. I love Always Forward because that's my life. Always forward.
Man, I can't wait to read it. Thank you for sharing that. I love the speed of implementation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now. Yeah. And what holds people back? The fear of rejection. It's killing them. Get out there, because the longer you wait, the more it hurts. Go.
Again, this podcast is a pure experiment of that. As I was fearful to do a show. Could we do it? Could we pull it off? Would it be accepted? Would people watch it? And it's been massively successful the more I keep putting myself out there on the shows like this. So guys, I'm failing forward and failing more, and I love that. Bill, thank you for being a guest today on Connect, Share, Prosper. Really enjoyed the conversation. You're just a wealth of wisdom and experience that really was beneficial to our audience. Guys, remember, each Monday, noon Central, I bring successful people like Bill on this show to share their story, their value, their experience, and their wisdom with each of you. So make sure you join us next week on the next episode of Connect, Share, Prosper. Till next time, be well. Talk to you soon. Take care.